Greetings, friends. Welcome to the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm thrilled to be here with you. Hope you're having a wonderful week. Hope you're getting a lot of things done. Super excited to be here. Thank you to all of you Minnesota rock stars for the wonderful time we had this week at the back to school Grit launch that you guys just had. And I wish you guys all the success in La Crescent Hoka School District. Thank you, Superintendent Mindy, for extending the opportunity. I'm looking forward to training many other districts as well. And so with that said, I want to go into some announcements for you guys. First things first, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White will be featured also on X Factor EDU Network, which is hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph. You can also find it on Spotify and all of my main social media platforms. I also wanted to remind you of those social media platforms. So you've got Facebook is Miss India White, LinkedIn is The India White, Twitter is Indy Speak and Teach, Instagram is Indy238, YouTube is India White 123, and TikTok is Dr. India White. I also wanted to encourage you to check out the website when you get a chance, www.india-white.com, for blogs, books, and to schedule me for a speaking or coaching event. Speaking of events, I do have some coming up. I'll be seeing you guys at NCSM and at NCTM. Please join my sessions. I would love to have you there. Also, looking forward to Nebraska's conference, also ICTM in Iowa, OCTM in Ohio, Northwest Conference, and even SCTM and ATMNE conference as well. And of course, the calendar is still open and available for you guys. So just reach out to me via email. I'm looking forward to joining you guys. All right. Now, also check out the Grit Workshop when you get a chance on the Grassroots Workshops website. And then also check out the Grit Academy if you have a student that needs to be tutored. I am here for those services. Just send me an email, or you can look at the website and you can get some information from there as well. So thanks so much for letting me share that. Now, I want to go into our episode. And for those that are just joining, this podcast usually is if you're trying to close the achievement gap, but you're having classroom management issues, or if your students just aren't motivated to do the work, you can join me here and we will talk about how we can help our students be successful through grit and help each other through grit. So with that said, after my training with Minnesota teachers, and not just that, just in general, I realized that, I needed to continue to cover more about grit and how we can just become better, just in general. But I also wanted to talk a little bit today about imposter syndrome and how we could defeat the imposter syndrome through self-efficacy. I just want to first, just open it up and just say, okay, we all have dealt with imposter syndrome one way or another, feeling like we're just not good enough, or our ideas just won't stick, or we're just not really fit for the job, or, we're just wearing shoes that are just too big, kind of a feeling, which are all just false, I believe. And sometimes that can impact us. And so a little bit about self-efficacy first, because in order to defeat the imposter syndrome, you're going to have to know about self-efficacy. It's very important. And so I first want to open this up. I want to talk with you leaders and you teachers about what is self-efficacy? What does that look like? What is it all about? And so we have this clip here. It says self-efficacy. What is it and how does it affect teaching? Person wants to believe in their ability to do something. Math, we just do math. You're open to trying new ideas and strategies. You're willing to make you're more likely to students, less low achieving students, less tolerable as a teacher. Understanding. So I like that. It says a teacher's self-efficacy can either positively or negatively affect their students' academic performance and attitude. Very true. So again, a teacher's self-efficacy can positively or negatively affect their students' academic performance and attitude. So as teachers, if we're giving a negative message, about how we feel about math, or if we think, a lesson is hard or things like that, it can affect the students. I kind of want to share out a little bit about an experience that I had with this. When I was teaching right before the standardized tests, and I was teaching lower quartile learners at the time. And I remembered they were all afraid. They had level 1s and 2s for the most part, out of a level 5 in the Florida standardized test at the time. And I just remembered it was how I spoke about it that either gave them hope or made them feel like it was just utterly impossible. I knew of a student who the teacher would constantly tell them, a different teacher would tell them, this test is going to be super hard, guys. Okay. It's just going to be just insurmountable. It's just going to be hard. Good luck. And what I found was that if you flip it and you do some type of reverse psychology on it, it actually can give students the self-efficacy they need, the confidence that they need, the motivation that they need to attempt the test and be successful. And so, for instance, I remember in a timed test from the state that, I went over with the students beforehand. These tests usually have about 68 questions, 70 questions, whatever. And then I said, if you think about it, you're trying to get enough to get either a level 3, 4, 5, right? So I'm just talking numbers with them. And I'm saying, out of 68 points, how many questions would that be? How many points would that be? And we did the math. And then I would give them strategy. See, it's all practical. You can do this. You just have to figure out how you need to be successful. And you need to figure out how you want to approach this for the level of success that you're desiring. Do you want a 5? Well, if you want level 5, which is the highest on that test, then you need to do ABC. You need this many points. If you want a 4, and we would strategize from the previous tests how they could approach it in an optimistic manner. And it worked. Students were very optimistic, and they would say, I only need to aim to get at least this many to pass. And then if I want a 4 or 5, I can do this. And it was a strategy that worked for my students because that's what they needed at that time. And I think that sometimes when we're giving these tests, standardized tests and things, students need options. They need strategies for how to approach it and to get rid of any imposter syndrome and any anxiety that they might face as a result. So I thought that was really neat. And so let's get back into this and see what else it says about self-efficacy for us, and then we'll transition. Attitude and performance. That's pretty powerful. So now we're watching about a professor named Brett Jones, and he's going to talk to us about self-efficacy theory. So as you see here, he's saying, what is self-efficacy, what affects it, and how does self-efficacy predict?
And how can teachers foster student self-efficacy? I want to start by asking you some questions that require you to rate your confidence on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is not confident at all, 5 is moderately confident, and 10 is highly confident. My question is, how confident are you that you can make a basketball shot from 5 feet away from the basket? Rate yourself on the above scale from 0 to 10.
I'm a 1.
Now answer this question. How confident are you that you can make a basket from 15 feet away from the basket, which is at the foul line?
0.
Again, rate yourself from 0 to 10. And finally, how confident are you that you can make a basketball shot from 25 feet away from the basket, which is about a foot behind the NBA three-point line? Rate yourself from 0 to 10.
-2.
I bet that your ratings vary for these questions, and that your ratings start higher and get lower for the second and third questions. These questions ask you about your self-efficacy for shooting a basketball. One of the reasons that self-efficacy is important is that it predicts achievement and performance. So in this case, I would expect that your ratings align fairly well with what would happen if I were to hand you a basketball and ask you to shoot it at each of these 3 distances. That is, if I were to give you 10 shots,
Oh,
you should make more of your shots from 5 feet away than you would from
okay.
25 feet away if this is how you rated your self-efficacy. Let's discuss self-efficacy more by starting with a definition. Self-efficacy refers to perceived capabilities for learning or performing actions at designated levels.
So
Let's see
again,
how my questions to you about basketball, which I claimed were about self-efficacy, relate to this definition.
so I'm going to stop there, but I just think this is very interesting. The definition pulled from, Bandura's research in 1997, perceived capabilities for learning or performing actions at designated levels. So very interesting of how we perceive our learning and our abilities, right? To perform. What can hinder self-efficacy? A lot of things can hinder self-efficacy, including feeling like your teacher doesn't believe in you, feeling like you don't belong. Thinking it could be things people have said, perceptions about you, perceptions about your work, that can affect your sense of self-efficacy and your confidence. So that's something we have to keep in mind as we're working with our students. So one thing we can do is we can push for increasing their self-efficacy as we're teaching them. And this will help them to overcome the imposter syndrome. I also want to get back to that, to just discussing with you guys just tips for overcoming imposter syndrome in general. I was thinking of this and I'm like, what would I say to you? So personally, this is from my heart. This is from me. Tips for overcoming imposter syndrome and defeating it, really. For one, if you do your best to prepare and you prepare, you're going to feel much better whenever you're approaching whatever the task is. If it's a sport, if it's a test, if it's a business, whatever, you'll feel much better because you feel prepared. You did your best. And I find that, kids usually feel flustered if they don't feel like they're prepared, or if they have not been given an ample amount of time to study and really understand the topic, then that's going to affect their self-efficacy. Also, you can block out negative voices, right? So this is imperative because everyone is talking to us, good, bad, and ugly. And we have to understand how to tune out those voices that just aren't good for our mental health. They aren't good for our self-efficacy and our confidence. Students need to understand how to do that, because students are sponges, and when they get started, they just take everything in as truth, and they have to learn how to discern and how to navigate through the weeds and the flowers, and keep what's good, keep what's, chew the meat, spit out the bones kind of an approach. So we have to help our students with that. And you as an educator as well, you have to learn how to block out negative voices. Maybe you didn't have a hot year before, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to have a good year this year, right? Or maybe you weren't good at teaching this particular grade level. That doesn't mean that you're not going to rock it out in this other grade level. So these are some things you have to keep in mind. Also, get feedback and training. I remember being on a team, and one of our pet peeves was incompetence. Now, and I say this in a way where, when I say incompetence, meaning that you've been set up to be competent. So you've been given the resources, you've been given the support, whether that's social support, academic support, fiscal support, whatever you need to be competent, and you're still not hitting it, then that can be, a pet peeve for some people. And that's another reason why people will come at you and say, oh, they just don't know what they're doing, is they'll try to pin off that you're incompetent. So that makes you feel like, you're dealing with that imposter syndrome, and that decreases your self-efficacy. Well, let me just let you know, you have to understand to look at the big picture, look at the entire thing. If you have been set up for success, if you're in the classroom, you have curriculum, you have everything you need, then you should be able to thrive. But if you don't have curriculum, or you weren't explaining things and it's blotchy, and you're being left out of conversations, left out of, important deadlines and content and things and discussions, that's a different situation. That's not necessarily incompetence. that's an unjust situation that you're dealing with, and it's affecting your way of work. There's a difference there. So what we're talking about is having true incompetence. You signed up for a job. For instance, I was not competent when it came down to physics. Physics with calculus at like hardcore level in college. It wasn't because I didn't have a desire for physics. I had never learned physics ever, ever. The first taste of physics was blended with calculus. So when I was with my peers, they had already had a year of physics. So when they came to the table at at the university, it was just easy because oh yeah, we saw this in high school, we're good. I came to the table like, you saw what? What is this? And I'm reading this for the first time, and I have to learn this and reteach myself calculus. So it was not a fair setup for me. And I even got tutors, and it still was not a fair setup because the curriculum was over my head, and it was not set up in a way where in the course description it did not say prerequisite physics, or it didn't say anything. So we just thought, I clicked into calculus. I thought I was good, but no, I needed more. And as an educator, sometimes you need more. You need some filler, like you need extra support. And, that's going to affect your sense of self-efficacy for sure. So making sure that you're doing your best to be prepared is key. And then getting that feedback and training. So if you don't have that support, ask for feedback, ask for training. I hope you can get it, or look for professional development supports and resources online as well. Things that, or attend a conference, do something, right? And then of course, being your authentic self is key. Because when you're doing this, you'll be able to really build yourself up, overcome imposter syndrome, and really hit that through grit and through self-efficacy, which is so needed today for our kids. I kind of want to show a little bit about one of the parts of a training, one of my favorite parts of the training this week in Minnesota, where teachers we're just talking about how they also want to build grit and motivate students, and which affects their self-efficacy and affects how those students feel about their ability to learn, feel about their role in the classroom and whatnot. So I want to share a little bit of that and how
framework.
You guys said you're going to, you have currently to grit. Okay, so we're going to start with here and work our way around. Let's do it.
We're going to make it authentic so they can connect it to their lives.
Love it. Authentic. All right, over here.
Build relationships.
Build relationships. Relevant. All right. Go for it. Cognitive thinking. Or positive thinking. Address the why.
See, when you address the why, that's helping to, eliminate that imposter syndrome as well, because you're getting those missing pieces filled in. They said positive feedback.
Work through mistakes.
See, whenever you're dealing with self-efficacy and overcoming imposter syndrome, you have to allow for mistakes to happen, and then an ability to work through those mistakes so that you don't feel like it's just an ultimate failure. Like you have to have the opportunity to work through that.
All right, next.
They said encouragement, and I think that's key. Current environments are not feeling like we have that encouragement as an educator, right? And so being intentional on encouraging your students, and also you as well, getting the encouragement you need so you can be successful is key.
All right. Progress over perfection.
Yes.
Love that, especially for leaders.
I think I'm going to stop at there, but progress over perfection is another thing. You know, whenever you're dealing with imposter syndrome, it can be so tempting to feel like you have to have everything right. You have to be, you know, the master of this. You can't make any mistakes or else you're just done. But understanding that sometimes it is a progress, and that you have to go through different systems and different concepts, right, to get the entire grasp of whether it's a project or whether it's a teaching assignment, whatever it is that you're doing is key. Because so many times, you know, whenever you're dealing with imposter syndrome, you can feel like no matter what you do, you're just not going to be good enough. And I heard this, you know, from some teachers, which is kind of like, it was disheartening because I didn't want to hear that from them. I didn't want to see them hurt like that internally. I didn't want them to have that internal struggle. So if you're out there and you might have that sense of, you know, imposter syndrome or that internal struggle, I just want you to be encouraged and to know that it gets better one day at a time. You know, don't shoot yourself in the foot, don't unplug yet. You know, just continue to learn, continue to do your best, learn from others, do some learning walks, do whatever, you know, you can in your power to make the situation turn out better for you and for your students. So I just thought that was very interesting that, you know, we were able to tie self-efficacy and, you know, into imposter syndrome. I will say this too, you know, the last part here where it talks about being your authentic self is so imperative. There's nothing more frustrating than, you know, feeling like you're just incompetent or like you just don't have what it takes. And then you're doing your best, and then you're trying to like literally model after someone else, and it's just not working. I love it when that happens in life because I think that's like nature's way of saying, be you, be authentic. Don't try to be a carbon copy of someone else because it just doesn't work. I was in a situation. I heard someone at an event, and they were trying to sound like someone that was very renowned, very well known in this particular field of this particular business. And when the person got up and started speaking, everyone was thinking of this other person, right? That's the first thing it did. And then it was just like, oh man, this is a hot mess. This is a hot mess. Because it wasn't him. Like, it wasn't his authentic self. He was literally working extra overtime to be like someone else. And so I think we all do our best, but we are all at our best when we accept ourselves and stop trying to copy someone else's style or stop trying to take from others, and then put our name on it. Like be authentic, because it's a hot mess when you're not. It's a hot mess when you think you have it down and you can, deliver or whatever. You're not going to be as awesome as the original person that did it, or the original person that you're trying to imitate. Perfect example. All the Michael Jackson carbon copies out here, it's just, when you think of that, whether it's Michael Jackson or if it's Elvis and all these people that do their best to imitate and emulate these wonderful celebrities that, have gone before us. And they love them so much, and they have such endearment, and they're such fans. But some of them, y'all, like, I see some of these people and I'm like, why? That is not, and I am not one to be the critic. I'm just saying, and I know you know what I'm talking about. When you see people that they're trying to do the moonwalk, it's not quite that. They're trying to, do the little hee thing that Michael Jackson does, or they're trying to do the little Elvis swoop, on his hair, or they're trying to do, the whatever he does, with the guitar and things like that. And it's just like they fall short. You'll see them sometimes they come close and it's like, wow, that's awesome. But sometimes it's like, oh my word, right? So I think that we also have to keep that in mind and be content with who we are. I've also found that, even when you do try to be a carbon copy of someone else, sometimes it's just not even received, like, at all. Like, so you can put all of this effort and strength and stuff into trying to copy or trying to do something that's not you. And what you'll find is it's still rejected. Like it's probably even more so rejected than who you were originally in your original state. So keep those things in mind as you are trying to develop your craft as an educator, as a leader, things like that. Like, be authentically you and be happy with being authentically you, and don't chase after someone else's, whatever they've got going on, whatever makes them stick out, whatever makes them unique. Just be you, and overcome imposter syndrome by continuing to be your authentic self and accepting your authentic self. And I think too, another reason why imposter syndrome exists is because people, even though we're adults, we have wounds, and children also have wounds, right? And some of those wounds can be because of rejection, whether it was from childhood or, an event that took place or something a teacher said, something a teacher did, something a parent did. It could be from abandonment, and it could be from just neglect, different things like that can make you feel like you're just never going to be good enough. You could have dated someone who was just no good, who you looked your best for them, you did your best for them, and it just never was good enough because you just never were their type, or they were always comparing you with the next person, or with the higher zip code bracket, like whatever it is. And so another thing we have to do, which, I didn't write here, but when you're trying to overcome, you have to heal as a person. You have to heal, because if you feel like you have to take from someone else all the time to be in the room, or if you feel that you have to overachieve or overperform and you still feel like you're not good enough, then there's an inner healing that needs to take place. And yes, you can be a full-grown adult and still need healing, emotional healing, psychological healing, mental healings and things like that. That does not make you a bad person. That just means that you're having now an awareness of, why do I feel this way? So now I need to dig deep and look within and see, how can I heal within so that I can continue to be my best self and serve others outside. And so with that said, I hope that this helps you guys when it comes down to really defeating the imposter syndrome through self-efficacy. Thanks so much for joining me again on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. Again, this episode and other episodes will be featured on Spotify, as well as on Dr. Matthew Joseph's X Factor EDU network, which you can find that on Spotify. It'll also be on social media channels on YouTube. You could find it everywhere. You can also check out the website, www.india-white.com, for books, blogs, and to schedule me for an event. You can also check out my social media. Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. And so I will see many of you guys at some of these events listed below. NCSN, NCTM. I just want to hug. I just want to say hi. I just want to say thank you to many of you. And I can't wait to connect with you guys at Nebraska. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. Iowa, seeing you there. Ohio, seeing you in New Jersey at the ATM&E. Seeing you at the Northwest Conference, South Carolina's conference, and beyond. Please make sure you're checking out the Grit Mini Workshop whenever you get a chance. And then remember, so if you're trying to close the achievement gap, but you're having classroom management issues, or if your students aren't motivated to do the work, then you can always jump on here. You can hear a little bit more about how we can make grit and equity work for all of our kids. So with that said, guys, you guys have been absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much again for joining me. And till next time, stay gritty.